They're somewhat peculiar also. An eminent scholar of philosophy comes from abroad and he depicts whatever Indian philosophy contains. It is very miraculous. I request Prof.Daniel Raveh, whose topic is contemporary Indian philosophy, fantastic menu. He is most welcome. Please, Professor Raveh, come on the dais. एक बड़ी प्रसन्नता का विषय भी बता दूं, प्रोफेसर रावे हिंदी जानते हैं, समझते हैं और थोड़ी थोड़ी बोल। शांत भाव से सुने।
Great pleasure to be here, and I wish to thank everyone for honoring me in such a way. But I want to philosophize with you. I want to do philosophy with you. I don't want to stay at the ceremonial level. So I will speak in English. Metola anglês me batcam. Aqui koi patane meri accent yakuch. So please don't hesitate and stop me in between and ask a question, because the reason I came is basically for you. I mean, the malas are beautiful and everything is beautiful, but yeah, I want to meet you and to talk to you and to take your questions. So as I was sitting here, I remembered the Jacques Derrida. I don't know if you heard the name Jacques Derrida, right? Did you hear the name? Whoever, if anyone heard the name Jacques Derrida, please raise your hand for a second. Did you hear of Jacques Derrida?
Jacques Derrida. Do you know?
No, it's okay. If you haven't heard of Jacques Derrida, it's absolutely okay. So Jacques Derrida is an interesting French philosopher who passed away in 2004. On purpose, I said interesting Indian philosopher, interesting French philosopher. I didn't say famous. I think that it is worthwhile reading what Derrida wrote. Derrida is identified usually with what is called postmodernism. So I encourage you to read Derrida. But I remember Derrida because Derrida came to Israel maybe in 2001 or 2002, just before he passed away. You can follow what I'm saying. And I remember, he was very famous. He spoke in this huge auditorium. He was a small person, physically. And he started his talk with the following sentence, which I'm going to repeat now. He said, "Today, you and I are guests in language." This was the first sentence that he said in English. Today, you and I are guests in language. And I think that it's a beautiful sentence to open with, because what does it mean? What does it mean, today you and I are guests in language? When someone like Derrida came to Israel, his language is French, right? And the language in Israel is Hebrew. We speak Hebrew. Did you hear the name Hebrew? Israel Bhasha. We speak Hebrew. We teach in Hebrew. We write in Hebrew. It's an ancient language like Sanskrit. It's as if all of you would do everything in Sanskrit, which happens, not maybe in this place, but in other places. So we think in Hebrew, we chat in Hebrew, we joke in Hebrew, we dream in Hebrew. So we are the Hebrew people, and he is coming from France, thinking and used to speaking in French, and he said, today you and I are guests in language, meaning we are meeting in English, which is neither my language nor your language. So in this respect, I'm also meeting you in English, which is not my language and not your language. But you realize that when we say today we are guests in language, it has another layer to it. Because the question is, what is the status of language? Can language really express what we feel? Can language really express what we want to convey? So I think that in these two dimensions, we are really guests in language. So this is my first introduction. Secondly, maybe I should tell you something about myself, coming here under this big title, Contemporary Indian Philosophy, a tasting menu. I mean, you know what a tasting menu is. You go to a restaurant and you want to taste everything. So they give you something which is called tasting menu, just one chamach of every dish in the restaurant. So this is what I'm trying to offer you in my modest restaurant, philosophical restaurant, this morning or afternoon. I did my BA and MA, as I told the head of the department, in Tel Aviv University in Israel. And then while I was an MA student, I found a book at the library of Tel Aviv University, a book written by an Indian scholar called Daya Krishna. Now, I don't know if you heard the name Daya Krishna. Did you hear the name Daya Krishna? Anyone heard the name Daya Krishna? No, definitely. Okay, but hearing the name is not enough. You have to read it, Daya Krishna. So anyway, I found this book in the library. The title of the book was Indian Philosophy, a Counter Perspective. Indian Philosophy, a Counter Perspective, published in 1991. And I took it out of the library and I started to read, and there was something different in this book. There was something different which captured me. And I think that this happening, quote-unquote happening in the book, is what really gave me the motivation, gave me the incentive to go to India, to go to Jaipur and to meet the author of the book, to meet Daya Krishna. I was young and naive. Now I'm not so young, but maybe not so naive. So I didn't write an email. This was before the internet. I didn't write a letter. I just traveled to Jaipur, and I arrived in Jaipur one day in the late 1990s. I came to Daya Krishna's house. I will call him from now on Dayaji. So I came to Dayaji's place. I knocked on the door. He lived not far from the university. He opened the door and said yes. An old man wearing white kurta pajama opened the door and said yes. And I didn't realize that I would stay there for 10 years to study with him, to study from him. So half of my PhD actually took place at the University of Rajasthan in Jaipur, the other half in Tel Aviv in Israel. So I'm not exactly Matavo Israel Se'aya, Kafi Dus, eminent professor, Vagara. My studies were here, and I'm going to tell you about my own teachers. When I'm saying contemporary Indian philosophy, I'm going to speak about the work of my own teachers in Jaipur. You know that usually there is this differentiation between Western philosophy and Indian philosophy. So some people, I'm in Banaras now for 10 days, 2 weeks, so some people are asking me, so what do you think about Indian philosophy? So I can't say what I think of Indian philosophy. It's like asking you, what do you think about Western philosophy? It is so far too vast. Okay, so I try to say something about work which is done in India even today. Usually when you think about Indian philosophy, you think about classical Indian philosophy, you think of the Upanishads, the Veda, right, Shankaracharya. We are in Banaras, Sarnath is not far, about the Buddha, Nagarjuna, Dharma Kirti, Chandra Kirti. Usually people don't think about philosophy which is done in India in the 20th or 21st century. Or otherwise you might be thinking about Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Gandhiji. But these people are not just philosophers. I think that they are philosophers plus. They are more than philosophers. So when I'm speaking about contemporary Indian philosophy, I think about the academic contemporary Indian philosophy. And this is what I wrote for you. So I'm reading to you, but please, if you cannot follow for whatever reason, stop me, because otherwise we are just wasting our time together. So I wrote, contemporary Indian philosophy is a distinct genre of philosophy that draws both on classical Indian philosophical sources and on Western materials, old and new. It is comparative philosophy without borders, if I may borrow this phrase from Alidam Chakrabarty and Ralph Weber that published a book in 2015 called Comparative Philosophy Without Borders. In the following lines, I attempt to show how contemporary Indian philosophy works through 5 instances from 5 of its protagonists. Krishnachandra Bhattacharyya, or K.C. Bhattacharyya as you might know him. I will speak of his new interpretation of the old rope snake parable in his essay Shankara's Doctrine of Maya from 1925. Daya Krishna, I will focus on the moral monadism that the theory of karma in his reading leads to, drawing on his book Discussion and Debate in Indian Philosophy from 2004. Is there a book that I can put under my computer and lift my computer up?
समझ में आ रहा है कुछ? अभी तक इन्होंने बात किया है कि कंटेम्पोरेरी मतलब समकालीन भारतीय दर्शन के बारे में हम बात करने जा रहे हैं और उसमें भी जो समकालीन भारतीय दार्शनिक है केसी भट्टाचार्य का नाम लिया इन्होंने और बोला कि जो विवेकानंद और ये अरविंदो घोष है वही नहीं है, उनके आगे भी है। ये अभी दया कृष्ण के शिष्य हैं मैकुल यूनिवर्सिटी में, वहाँ से